Just recently, I finished playing Guerrilla Games' Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the first games I played when I first got my PlayStation. And I thoroughly enjoyed Zero Dawn, enough to get the Platinum Trophy and spend countless hours in its world. I was obviously pretty excited for Forbidden West. It was one of the first games I got with my PS5. However, while I was playing it, I couldn't help but notice I had a lot of issues with the game. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a very solid game that has a lot of passion behind it clearly, and I can appreciate the effort that they put into it. But there was one glaring problem throughout my playthrough that was big enough that I thought I should make a video on it. Namely, the open world and how much it detracts from the experience overall. And in starting to write this script, I kind of realized that it wasn't just Forbidden West, but currently a lot of AAA games are facing the same problem. And so today I want to discuss the open world problem that I think has plagued a lot of modern AAA games. Alright, so I think it's only right that I start off with Horizon Zero Dawn. This game is really awesome, honestly, and the main appeal of this awesomeness is fighting these huge mechanical creatures. Fighting them is fun, and can honestly be pretty challenging sometimes. They're unpredictable, and I don't know, they just kind of feel like they're real, living creatures. The first game also offered a pretty solid story with some fun characters, and a pretty interesting plot. Figuring out what happened to the Earth was a fun experience. Zero Dawn performed very well, selling over 24 million units. So naturally there was gonna be a sequel for the PS5. Forbidden West was announced in 2020, and I was pretty excited for it alongside many other fans. I started playing it right when I got my PS5, but for some reason it didn't really click with me, so I put it down and I returned to it just a couple weeks ago. Now I have played through the entire main story, and by the end, I had some pretty conflicted opinions on it, as you know. I really can't stress enough how the main appeal of these games is fighting these awesome machines. And once again in Forbidden West, these fights were great. Maybe a little bit more chaotic than Zero Dawn, but I didn't mind. And yeah, these fights were amazing, but the problem is that everything else just kind of wasn't. The story just inherently wasn't as interesting as Zero Dawn's. We solved the mystery in the last game, so it was a losing battle from the beginning, and I get that they tried their best, but I just wasn't very engaged throughout. The other main form of combat, against humans, is also just not great. Like, clearly they tried to improve it with the addition of a very complex melee weapon tree, but honestly, the melee attacks just aren't very strong. Like, why would I spend triple the time attacking this dude with my spear when I could just one-shot him in the head with my bow? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Furthermore, traversal throughout the world just isn't very interesting. The glider is neat, but it's very situational, and riding machines is kinda cool, but for how large the map is, it's just not interesting enough to justify the size. The graphics might make up for this a bit, because they are gorgeous. The game looks so amazing. And the character animations have definitely improved too. But I don't know, just as I kept on playing, I kept on getting bombarded with new things, and every time I was just like, I really do not need to learn this new Machine Strike game, or spend hours hunting to upgrade my ammo or weapons. All I want to do is fight the cool machines. And I know one could argue that these extra elements are just made for people who want to do them. Like, I could just choose not to do them. And well, yeah, this is true with a few things. There's honestly just so much stuff apart from fighting the machines that it's honestly impossible to like keep my gear and level up in a line with the story and progress the story in the first place. Like, I'm going to have to interact with all these extra elements. And by the end of the game, I had spent way too long upgrading my gear, mindlessly talking to boring NPCs, one-shotting human enemies, etc., that I was just speedrunning the main missions. But even those were like 90% talking to people or running around, and then that other 10% was an awesome boss fight with a really cool machine, but I had to get through so much boringness just to get to the best part of the game. And so this is the big problem I had with Forbidden West, and I do think it boils over into a more broad problem with a lot of AAA games nowadays. They've always been made to try and appeal to a wide audience, so they include all these extra things, but a lot of the time they just end up detracting from the game. Like, oh, you're a fan of crafting? Forbidden West has it. but for like no reason, because you have so many resources that having infinite ammo would change almost nothing. Some people might appreciate it, but I just feel like things that don't serve any purpose to the most fun part of the game really shouldn't be that in-depth or even part of the game at all. And I'll admit, part of the problem is just the world of Horizon. Because in a game like The Witcher 3, I was super happy to do all these extra activities, and I loved how awesome and living the world felt because of them. But I think that's the key difference right there. Gwent is the best part about The Witcher. Just kidding, kind of. But I think it actually more has to do with the quality of the side activities as well as the world building that they add to the world of The Witcher. So I personally think Forbidden West could have been a much more enjoyable experience if they had just focused on the machine combat. It's great, but they definitely could have refined and fleshed it out a lot more than they already did. As fun as it is, by the end of the game, a lot of machine encounters do come down to similar tactics to beat them. But if more of the team during development had been put towards avoiding this, instead of focusing so much effort on all these extra elements that most people are not gonna care for, maybe we could have had a much more focused and fun experience overall. Like, I'm not sure about everyone, but instead of Machine Strike, I would have much rather preferred machines that maybe like adapt to how you play. Like they'll learn how you defeated them previously and adapt to that with extra armor or different tactics. Something like that would just keep the fighting interesting for the entire duration of the game. Or they could just cut down the playtime of the game and then there wouldn't be an issue in the first place. And all of this definitely isn't just a Forbidden West problem. I don't want to bash on this game too much because I did have a fun time playing it. Lots of Ubisoft games have a similar problem, and I felt pretty similar feelings about like Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, Infamous Second Son, just a lot of open world games clearly. So many games want to advertise all their amazing systems and extremely long playtime to try and draw people in, even if these systems are just bland or maybe even detracting from the game. And the massive playtime is just pointlessly grinding. It doesn't matter as long as people buy it. And I can see why this works, especially with the price of games nowadays. People will often not think it's worth paying $80 for a 10-hour experience. And honestly, I don't even know if I can argue with this. It's kind of just my personal preference that I would rather have a better short experience than a bloated okay one. And of course, I now have to praise indie games for doing pretty much exactly this. They are generally cheaper and a lot more focused on a single idea that people want. Maybe they reach smaller audiences because of this, but those smaller audiences can enjoy them all the more. And personally, I just wish we could get this with AAA games, because it would be awesome to have these big budget experiences that are short and really fun. I know recent examples like Astrobot or the new Zelda game, or like a lot of Nintendo games in the first place, are a great step in the right direction, but overall, I don't know if I can see it changing. So overall, what I think I'm trying to say is that I would rather have more unique AAA experiences compared to all these huge bloated ones that we're getting right now. Going back to what I said at the beginning about the open world problem, I think the problem is inherently just the open world. Not every game needs to be an open world, and sometimes I think a lot of the developer skill put into adding all these extra things that really don't add anything could be put somewhere else to make the overall base game a lot more fun. Now don't get me wrong, open worlds can be done well. I love a lot of open world games, but I just think a lot of them don't turn out great, and sadly I think Horizon Forbidden West falls into that category. There will definitely be another Horizon game in the future, and I'm really hoping that they hear some of these criticisms and can take those into account and maybe change things up next time. But what about you guys? Is this just me being dumb, or do other people also not like these current AAA open world games? Anyways, thank you guys for letting me rant about how AAA gaming sucks, a very original opinion. For any longtime fans, yeah, I'm uploading again. Awesome. I probably won't be uploading as much as I did before, but I'll try to keep a consistent schedule if I can. But anyways, thank you for sticking around, and I hope to see you in another video. Thanks for watching.